Hi, everybody, and welcome to Beebe Book Buzz. We're here, as we always are, to talk about your librarian's best reads of the month, maybe. Yeah.
What we've enjoyed.
What we've enjoyed for this month, and we do this every month, and we have a special one coming up next month, which is called Summer Buzz. And there'll be more of us here, and we will have lists for you. Lists that you can see online, that you can see in the library in person, and along with a display of books that are on from those lists. So next month is our kind of big show, and we hope you'll join us then. Today I have Katie Riordan and Beth Radcliffe, and I'm Karen Stern, and we're all from the reference department, and we're going to start today with Beth.
Okay. The book I chose this month is The Marlowe Murder Club by Robert Thorogood. If you'd like The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman, while it's not the same series, it's a different series altogether, then I recommend that you try this book. As an Osman's book, as in Osman's book, the main protagonist is an elderly woman with gumption. Judith Potts follows her own rules. Mm-hmm. She goes swimming naked in the river by her house at midnight and will not sit back and let the police dismiss what she considers the murder of her neighbor, but they're just dismissing it as suicide or a missing person.
Is this Britain or is this either
It is
US?
Britain. In
so
fact,
also Britain. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and the river is the Thames.
Oh.
I can't believe she's on the Thames. Anyway,
well, the Thames is big in some places, but it's smaller in other places.
Yeah.
So
I still probably wouldn't swim naked in it personally.
No.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. She draws two other women into her circle of amateur sleuths, which also is a difference from the Thursday Murder Club. That's all elderly sleuths. These are women that range in age.
Okay.
And they eventually persuade Tanika Malik, the rookie cop in her beat, that the police should look at it as more than a suicide. The characters are all wonderfully told. They're really humorous. They have their own strengths. They have their own weaknesses. But they learn to rely on each other and to care for each other and themselves, too. They really gain confidence. Their interactions involve a lot of fun, witty dialogue, like this. As far as I can see, she could be our killer. Beck's eyes widen in amazement. That's not possible. She does yoga. So like the Thursday Murder Club, this is a cozy mystery. That means there's no blood on the page, there's no gore. It means that it's not quite as grip the seat of your chair, grip the arm of your chair, I guess. But it's, at the end though, it's a little bit like that. It's a softer mystery. You have the reassurance that our heroines will get their man or their woman, and none of the protagonists will die. None of our heroines. Thorogood delves lightly into some other issues, so that adds a layer of depth to the characters, such as being taken for granted by your family, or the loneliness of old age, or the invisibility of being a woman. But none of this stops our intrepid heroine. She enjoys not only the nude swims, but biking, and she bikes all over her picturesque village on the Thames, which is only 30 minutes outside of London. Mm-hmm. So pollution. It's a village she loves, and it's described as it wasn't too large, it wasn't too small, the perfect town for a Goldilocks like her. The story hums along at a pretty brisk pace with a number of twists and turns, and for me, an unexpected but very satisfying ending.
So yeah. Oh, unexpected. Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't catch it beforehand.
No.
Okay.
I didn't.
I'm not asking.
But it has been used before. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. So okay.
And they're going to make a PBS Masterpiece
Oh, great.
series on it.
Okay.
Starring, I don't know if it is familiar with Samantha Bond. She was in some episodes of Downton Abbey, and also she played in a James Bond series with Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She played Miss Goodpenny, which
Moneypenny.
Moneypenny. See,
Yes,
I don't
yeah.
watch it. I don't watch them, but she's got a cult following from that.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So-
Oh, I can imagine. I think I know the one we're talking about. Yeah.
I know I've seen her in things. I just
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know her.
Do you think the cast of characters were as developed as the main, or do you think it was pretty?
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that, and it's part of a series, so
Oh,
I think
great.
they're going to get even. I think the third one is coming out in June.
Okay. So this is the first, and you
This is
haven't read
first.
the second.
I haven't read the second.
Okay.
But
So-
I think there's a lot more.
More character
Yeah,
development maybe
yeah.
to come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good when you get that.
Yeah.
That's definitely what happens in the Osmonds, right? It's
Yes.
you learn more
Yes.
and more about.
Yes.
Mm.
And another read-alike would be, there's another book out in June by, I have to look because I don't remember. It's Susan Fletcher, Night in Question. So that's also a couple of elderly sleuths.
It seems to
amateur
be a
sleuths.
theme at the moment.
It
There's like
does.
I was looking at some for my summer buzz list, and there's 2 or 3 that are elderly, like ex-CIA and ex-MI6 and ex whatever, and they're all solving crimes still in their old age. But so there's plenty of it out there, and a lot of it is good. A lot of it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
There's one with the mother-daughter team where they look next door and they see their neighbor murdered as well. So that one's pretty cool. And they solve family dynamics. I'm not sure. I think it's called the Mother-Daughter Murder Club or something like that.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
there you go.
And
Lots
it's
of murder
Peg and
clubs.
Rose, the Peg and Rose series, which
Yeah.
is sister-in-laws that don't like each other. So I'm sure that lends itself to great dialogue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There's endless possibilities there. I mean, for more.
Yeah,
More like
absolutely.
it. Okay, I'm gonna talk about, well, I guess I'm gonna start with a question, and that is, when is a novel not a novel? And I think my answer is when it's written by Sigrid Nunez. And I was realizing that a lot of things I'm going to say today are probably true of a lot of her books. The feel of this book is something more like a cross between like a good podcast and a memoir, and then a really great like session of gossip over coffee with your friend. And
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
sounds
like
really
where
good.
you tell stories and you remember things and you share a little bit of your philosophy of life and you laugh and all that kind of stuff. So it's still a novel. There is a little plot, but if you read for a plot, this is not really the book for you. I would definitely say that. It's kind of more like a Seinfeld episode, right? It's like, there's observations and there's some social commentary and there's this like situational humor, but not a lot actually happens.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really comes through in this book is the voice of the book, of the narrator, because there's a narrator and it feels basically like she's talking to you, like that friend over coffee, right? Like she's just sitting there chatting to you. And I think that's one of the things that, that comes through with, especially this book. I think a lot of her books, but I kind of just wanted to give you a little bit of it. And I wanted to sort of set the scene. So this is, I didn't mention this, but it's a COVID novel. So this is set that she's, right now we're in the spring of 2020, and the narrator, who is the main character, who isn't really named, she's also an author, so you can think of her as the narrator or the author. You could even think of her, as I said, as Nunez herself, because it's not always clear in this book. It blurs those lines for sure. She's walking through the empty streets of New York City where she lives, and the spring petals are falling from the trees, and she's thinking about flowers. And so she says, can it be accidental that the names of flowers are always beautiful words? Rose, violet, lily, names so appealing that people choose them for their baby girls. Jasmine, camellia. I once knew a bulldog named Petunia, a cat named Mimosa. So many other beautiful ones I can think of. Anemone, lilac, azalea. Of course, there must be an exception. There are always exceptions. But though I'm not so keen about phlox, I can't come up with a single really ugly flower name. Can you? There are other plants, though, like weeds and herbs with hideous names like vetch. We're thinking of naming the baby Vetch. Meet the twins, mugwort and milk vetch, horehound, bugbane, wormwood, the name that C.S. Lewis gave the devil's apprentice in the Screw Tape Letters. Snapdragon, not for a baby girl, never, but a good name for a cat. So this is the kind of, you can hear the voice in this, right?
Yeah.
She's just, it's like musings, and she's like, she's talking to you, and
Definitely.
you're kind of laughing about vetch and mugwort and whatever. So there, the little bit of the plot that there is you know, set in this kind of claustrophobic loneliness where she likes to go out and wander the streets of the city. We're in lockdown, and this friend of a friend is locked down, got stuck on the West Coast, and she has a very posh, lovely apartment in Manhattan. And her parakeet, whose name is Eureka, is stuck there. Eureka.
Yep.
Flowers. And apparently parakeets can go mad if you leave them alone. Like people, they need company. And so this friend of a friend asks her to move into the flat and to be with the parakeet so he doesn't go mad. So she moves in with Eureka, but a young man also moves in who's another friend of a friend, and he's kind of escaping a family situation, and he ends up showing up at the apartment. She's really not happy about this, so she decides to call him Vetch in the story after the weed, because she doesn't really like him at all at first. But slowly, because COVID makes strange bedfellows, they kind of get to know each other. And she's 60-something and he's 20-something. So it's a divide. And they kind of, over time, create this connection. So that's part of the story. But also along the way, there are all the scenes with the parakeets, which are lovely and funny sometimes. There's drama with all the flower friends. All of her friends have flower names.
Oh, cool.
So all those names that she liked, she names them all. All the characters in the book are flower names. So, but there's drama that happens with her friends. There's some commentary on youth and age because there's this relationship. There's times when she's remembering. There's a lot about memory and remembering. But finally, also, you realize along the way that this has been a novel about what it means to be a writer, and in particular, what it means to be writing a novel in this modern age. And so the narrator, or is it Nunez, not really sure, wonders if what the novel must become is, and this is a quote, a literature of personal history and reflection, direct, authentic, scrupulous about fact. And that scrupulous about fact, and what she's talking about here is like, she's talking to you about the way that fact and fiction are so blurred now in our society, and she's thinking about like, what is fiction? If fact is fiction, then what is fiction? Like, what does writing a novel mean anymore? And so she's thinking about it, and you can see that she's like, she's in this book as she's writing it. It's kind of meta in that way, right? Like she's thinking about, wow, what is writing a novel now? What should it be? What's the new voice that represents the novel? And that's what we are a party to. And by the end of the book, we maybe are a little bit closer to understanding what this author feels the new voice should be. And as the New York Times reviewer Dwight Garner mentions at the end of the review of The Vulnerables, he says, "It has always been true. Being told about life by a perceptive author can be as good, if not better, than being told a story." And I think in this book, we are told a story, but we are also getting that amazing view of life. It's very, Beth and I were talking earlier about how there was the author's words in something she was reading just took you out of the story because they were so kind of convoluted and lots of big words, and maybe they were just the right words, but somehow it took you out of the story. That never happens with her. It's because it's so kind of personable and like she's chatting to you. You're getting all these kind of deep observations about all these things about life and the novel and all these things, but it's funny and it just goes by in a second. It's a small book. You could read it practically in the time of a podcast. It's like, it feels like that. So she's an amazing writer like that. The thing I like about her the most is that voice and the gentleness of her observations. There's no judgment in her books at all. She can tell you, she's an author who can actually say to you, this character said this, and then this character said that, and you never feel like she's on somebody's side. It's kind of a gift that not very many people, let alone authors, have. It was, so anyway, that's why I like Sierra Nunez. And as I said, lots of her books are that way, but this one is a good one.
I was going to ask, I've never read a book, I think, like that. So I was like, do you know of any other books?
I can't really say. I mean, I remember this before. I talked to The Friend, which was a book about a woman. And again, she loves animals, and she often incorporates animals into her stories. And so that one was about her relationship with a Great Dane who got, it was a friend's dog, and he died. And she was sort of left with this massive Great Dane in a tiny little New York apartment. Oh. And it isn't just about them. It's, again, like this one, it's kind of musings on life in general. So I guess I would say that one is like this in a certain way. And from what I know of her other books, that is also true. But I can't think of too many other writers who really strike me in the same way. I think she really is kind of unique.
Other meta writers, but...
Oh, meta happens a lot these days.
Yeah,
but that's, again, with this book, that's not what you feel. You just kind of, anyway, I'll wax poetic about it forever.
Speculation?
No. Well, that one's more...
Wrenching?
A little bit wrenching, yeah. This one, I can't explain it. It's gentle. It doesn't feel like it's hurt you in any way, but you realize you've come out with all these new ideas about things.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I also wanted to know about the title, The Vulnerables.
Oh, The Vulnerables.
Oh, right.
It's because she's 65 plus in New York in COVID.
Oh, okay.
She was a vulnerable. Like everyone's always telling her, you shouldn't be walking around the city streets. You're gonna die.
Yeah.
Vulnerables. So, but everyone in the book, in a way, the parakeet is vulnerable.
Yeah.
The young man is vulnerable. Everybody's really a vulnerable. It's not just her.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Awesome.
And now, Katie.
My book is The Book of Doors by Gareth Brown. So this book is very much opposite, I think, of your book, because it's a contemporary fantasy that follows a woman named Cassie Andrews who works in a bookstore, and she discovers a fantastical book. And this book has one power, and that power is to open any door, and one door is every door, which sounds very convoluted in a way, but it's like if you are holding this book and you're going to reach for a door and you're thinking of a place anywhere in time, you can go to that place.
Okay.
So is it a place and time?
Yes. Yeah.
So
it's
if I were
open a lot.
thinking about Rome in the 1810s.
You're there now.
Wow.
It's going to be fun.
Cool.
Yeah. But that's the coolest thing about this book. But unlike your book, this book is purely plot.
All about plot.
It's just plot. Like, and I was telling Karen earlier, I think you could take all the characters in this book and like shake them out and put other ones in, and it would be the exact same book. But like the characters are important, but like it's much to do about plot in this one.
Right.
But a little similarly, I think that if you like to have an overarching message,
right.
like that's extremely important to this book too, because it's all about time and how you handle time.
Okay.
And because it's pretty much its own like mechanism in the story, because you can go through all these different doors throughout the story, and it takes you into different times, and they use time as a weapon. They use time as a thing to steal from other people in the book.
There's so many books that this is bringing up for me.
Yeah, no, it's really cool in a way where it made me think, when you're like looking off and you're like, oh, I'm thinking way too much right now.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that was the meaning for it, but it made me think a lot about how time can change for people, and it could be a blessing and a curse.
Yep.
And in this book, at one point, not a huge spoiler, but she lost the book at one point, and when you lose the book, you're stuck. So she gets stuck in time. Yeah. So I have to be very vague because this book has, again, plot, and if I say too much, that's giving away the whole thing.
Yeah.
But because she has this very, very special book, she dives into this world of the dark book collectors.
Right.
So all different books have all different powers, and they all want this because it's the most powerful book. So now she's on this wild adventure with what they call the librarian, who has a bunch of other very fantastical books. And it just gets very, very, very deep and adventurous, and it's really, really fun. And at the end of it, it's kind of cool because if you have to like time jumping, if you're reading this book.
Right.
Because you're going to go back and around and over, and then at the end you're like, I can see how that all tied together.
But not while you're in it necessarily.
Not while you're in it.
Yeah,
While you're in it, you're spinning, and you don't know what's happening.
No.
But that's kind of fun too.
Yeah, there's so many great read-alikes for that. I know you have some.
Yeah, I have a good list of read-alikes. My number one would definitely be The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So it's something that makes you think.
Yep.
And it's also putting you on different timelines, because this one involves 2 different timelines, and that one involves quite a few different timelines.
Well, and Matt Haig's other one, How to Stop Time.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've read it, but it is, it sounds like the combination of that and The Midnight Library is that book.
Yeah. That and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, because that one jumps, it is pretty linear, but it jumps back and forth in the narrative to different different times and how time can change the characters as people. That one, also The Discovery of Witches, because that one jumps back in time and involves a lot of magic. So if you like those 2 like mechanisms in a book, you're gonna like it. Or The Starless Sea by Eric and Morgenstern.
Yep.
So those are all really, really fun.
What about The Invisible Library?
The Invisible Library, that one. There's a lot of
I'm
cool
thinking How to Stop the Time War.
That's what the other one I was thinking, yeah.
Which, didn't we talk about? Oh, no, I know we talked about that.
We talked about
in
Leanne.
another group that we have,
Yeah, that one would work too, very similarly.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but the difference between those 2 is that one's not so plot driven.
No.
This is very plot driven.
Right.
Yeah,
I
there's a
love
goal.
that book.
Yeah.
Which is more like the Haig, I think. Haig's is more
Yeah.
plot driven. I mean, not that it has character too, but yeah.
But it's
Yeah. Or
very
Mr.
good.
Penumbra, maybe? Mr. Penumbra's 24-hour bookstore? Not quite exactly the same premise, but
Yeah. Well, this one also involves a bookstore. She's a bookstore.
Right, there you go.
She works at a bookstore, and it also involves a lot of even though I said that it's not very character based, there's a lot of deep relationships in the book.
okay.
And those deep relationships pretty much anchor her in the timeline. So that's pretty much, she keeps going back to those relationships, and that's how she doesn't, float away, kind of.
Right, okay.
So I highly recommend. I think it's going to be really good. Yeah.
Gareth Brown, okay.
Gareth Brown, yeah.
All right. Well, that was, there's a lot of, I feel like we could do a whole list on that. You could have done your beach reads
I honestly
list on
could.
that.
Yeah. A lot of time travel books, very cool. But you have to do it well. I think
Right.
Yeah, it's got to be a good mechanism in the book.
Yeah.
It can't just be, this is a time travel book. It's kind of,
Well, that was one of the amazing things about How to Stop the Time Wars.
yeah.
It goes it's not just time, it's different universes.
That's right.
And right, because
There's two authors, right?
Joint team, just did it so seamlessly. It was really incredible.
Yeah.
No, I really like that, especially also the books in this, it's kind of hard to explain, but the books in this book, they all have little magical twists to them, and you have to see, you got to figure out how the books were made. That's one of the things that when you're reading this book, think about how the books are made and what created the books, because that's a huge
that's what gives
plot
them
line.
their
Yeah, everyone wants to know, the
special.
book collectors don't know where these books came from, and that's the only magic they know in the world, these books.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's what made them this way and why these specific powers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's what makes it kind of interesting.
Time travel in books.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, last thought was that you said Deborah Harkness' Discovery of Witches.
Yes.
She's got a new one coming out.
She does.
For all you
Yeah.
lovers of Deborah Harkness.
She's great.
Okay, well, I think we finished really early and really fast today, so this is the shortest book buzz ever. But we will be back next week with a longer one, next month, I should say, not next week. So join us next month for Summer Buzz, and we will see you then. Looking forward to it.